Okay, on last night's homework assignment, I'm going to go over this pretty quick. A lot of complaints. A lot of people said they didn't know what to do. A lot of people didn't watch the videos as well. I don't know if you're watching this one in that case, but I'm going to go over it anyways. The first thing that I asked you was, what is P and what is Q? P is always the last term. Q is always the first term. So when I look for P, it's -1. Now I have to find the factors of P. What multiplies to give me -1? That would be either a positive and a -1. Then what multiplies to give me Q? It's 2, so it would be a positive or -1 and a positive or -2. Now I need to find my ratio of P over Q. And this will give me my possible rational, or my possible real roots. So 1 over 1 is 1, and it's always positive or negative. 1 over 2 is 1/2. It's always positive or negative. Next, you had to tell me whether it was a root or not. So what you had to do then was take this equation and plug it into Desmos. Was the easiest way to do it. Take this equation, plug it into Desmos. That'll give me my first root, which I know has to be one of these two. Either got to be a positive or -1, or a positive -1/2. Plug the whole equation in. When I look at this, I see I have a root at -1, -0.5, and 1. I'm only allowed to use one of these. I'm going to start with the -1. No, I'm going to start with the 1, just because it's going to be easy. Now I have to do my synthetic division based on 1. 1 goes in here. Next, I fill out my numbers. 2, 1, -2, -1. Now start doing synthetic division. 1 times 2 is 2. 1 plus 2 is 3. 1 times 3 is 3. -2 plus 3 is 1. 1 times 1 is 1. -1 plus 1 gives me 0. So it is in fact a root or a factor of the original equation. Now I backfill. 1 plus sign 3x plus sign 2x squared. Now I'm going to use the quadratic formula to solve this out. Once I get it down to an x squared, I can always go to the quadratic. -b, that's -3. By now you should have an idea of the quadratic formula. -3 plus or minus the square root of b squared, which is 9 minus 4 times a, which is 2, times c, which is 1, all over 2a. 2 times 2, which is 4. Remember a, b, and c. 4 times 2 times 1 is 8. 9 minus 8 is 1. This is -3 plus or minus 1 over 4. Break this into two problems. -3 minus 1 over 4. -3 plus 1 over 4. -3 minus 1 is -4. Divided by 4 is -1. -3 plus 1 is -2. Divided by 4 is -2/4, which is -1/2. These are my three roots. And then 1. So I have -1, -1/2, and 1. Those are my three roots. That's all you had to do. Number 2. What's my P? What's my Q? I have -7 and 4 is my P and Q. Find my factors of -7, plus and minus 1, plus and minus 7. Find my factors of Q, which is 4, plus and minus 1, plus and minus 2, plus and minus 4. Because 2 times 2 is 4, I only have to list the 2 out once. Do P over Q, or my possible rational roots. 1 plus or minus 1 over 1, that's just 1. Plus or minus 1 over 2, plus or minus negative 1/2. Plus or minus 1 over 4, plus or minus 1/4. Then do it with the 7. 7 over 1, 7 over 2, 7 over 4. The first part is done now. For the second part, I need to start with synthetic division. Because I didn't make you guess, I said you could just plug in the question to Desmos to get that first root. I guess I really didn't even need to delete all that. It's all in already. I just have to change numbers. 4 minus 12 minus 21 minus 7. Click on my dots. I can find my 3 roots. None of these look fun, except this one is the best. And I see that negative 0.5 is one of my options, so it's going to be negative 1/2 that I start with. Set up my synthetic division. Negative 1/2, that's 4, negative 12, negative 21, negative 7. Bring down the 4. Negative 1/2 times 4 is negative 2. Negative 12 minus 2 is negative 14. Negative 1/2 times negative 14, that gives us a positive 7. Negative 21 plus 7 is negative 14. Negative 1/2 times negative 14 is 7. It's 0. So negative 1/2 is a factor. Backfill my formula here. It's minus 14 minus 14x and 4x squared. Plug in the quadratic formula. Negative b, that's a positive 14, minus the square root of b squared, which is 196, minus 4 times 4 times negative 14. Boy, this problem feels familiar. Over 2 times 4. 4 times 4 is 16. Well, that'd be negative 16 times negative 14 is 224. We have 14 minus the square root of 224 over 8. This is not a perfect root. Plus or minus. I can plug this right into my calculator, and it is going to give me the same thing I got yesterday when I did this problem in class. But we didn't know how to do it. 4.312 and negative 0.1, negative 0.812. Just putting it out there. We literally did the second problem in class. So if you're telling me that you watched the video, then you should have seen that the problem was exactly the same. Especially if you took notes and then you went back and looked at your notes, comparing the problems to each other. But like I said, only 10 people watched the first video and only 2 people watched the second video. So that makes sense. You gotta watch the videos if you're going to learn, or come to class. Those are your options. Photomath will not do these roots. On to the next one. P is 1. Factors of 1 are plus or minus 1. Q is 4. Factors of 4, plus or minus 1, plus or minus 2, plus or minus 4. Possible factors here, plus or minus 1, plus or minus 1/2, plus or minus 1/4. There's a possible 3 roots because I have an exponent of 3. 3 is the most I could have as far as roots go. Plug this equation into Desmos. X cubed minus x squared minus 4x plus 1. Look at my graph. I have 1, -1. Let's find out which one it is. I told you, you can use the graph to do your first one. So I'm going to go with 1 because 1 is easy to multiply out and divide. 4 minus 1, -4, 1. That's the synthetic division that comes from the equation. Bring down the 4. 1 times 4 is 4. -1 plus 4 is 3. 1 times 3 is 3. -4 plus 3 is -1. 1 times -1 is -1. I get a 0. It's a factor. Now, 4x squared plus 3x minus 1. Negative b, that's -3, plus or minus the square root of b squared, which is 9 minus 4, times a, which is 4, times c, which is -1, all over 2a, which is 2 times 4. 4 times 4 is -16, times -1, positive 16. 9 plus 16 is 25. That's -3. Plus or minus the square root of 25, which is 5 over 8. -3 minus 5 is -8 over 8. -8 over 8 is -1. -3 plus 5 is -4. I'm sorry, positive 4 over 8, which is 1/2. I have 1 root. I have 2 roots. I have 3 roots. Done. Number 4. X cubed plus 6x squared minus 56x plus 5. P is 5. That means that P is plus or minus 5. Those are the only things that multiply to give you 5. Q is 1. So this is just plus or minus 1. Negative or positive 5 divided by 1 gives me just plus or minus 5 over 1. My only possible option here. Now, even though I say it's my only possible option, still 2 options because one is a positive 5, the other one is a negative 5. Plug the equation into Desmos. X cubed plus 6x squared minus 56x plus 5. Okay, so it's obviously going to be 5. I plugged the 5 in. do my synthetic division. 1, 6, negative 56, 5. Bring down the 1. 5 times 1 is 5. 6 plus 5 is 11. 5 times 11 is 55. Negative 56 plus 55 is negative 1. 5 times negative 1 is negative 5. Look, it's a factor. Backfill. X squared plus 11x minus 1. Quadratic formula. Negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared, that's 121, minus 4 times a, which is 1, times c, which is negative 1, all over 2 times 1. 121, then it's negative 4 times negative 1, that's positive 4 times 1, is still positive 4. 121 plus 4 is 125. Get negative 11 plus or minus the square root of 125 over 2. Calculate that out. Putting it into a calculator. Square root of 125 plus negative 11 is 0.18 divided by 2 is 0.09. So far, so good. On to the next one. So I got 0.09 whenever I added them together. Whenever I subtract them, and divide by 2, I get negative 11.09. When I look at my graph, I don't see negative 11.09 because we didn't scroll out far enough. Because this had an exponent of 3, I had 3 possible roots. I found them all. Here, here, and here. And we're done. Next one. P. 24. Factors of 24. Plus and minus 1. This one is tough. Not really tough, it's just a lot. Plus or minus 2. Plus or minus 3. Plus or minus 4. Plus or minus 6. 4 times 6 is 24. Plus or minus 8. 3 times 8 is 24. Plus or minus 12. 12 times 2 is 24. Plus or minus 24. Q is just 1. That means it's a plus or minus 1. So even though I had all these possibilities, the fact that Q was just 1 made it pretty nice for me. List out P over Q. 1 over 1. 2 over 1. 3 over 1. I'm done saying over 1. Now normally you would just have to guess which one to start with. And if it didn't work, you'd move on to the next one. Luckily we have Desmos and we can get away with picking the first one right away. So now minus 5x squared minus 16x plus 24. We'll look at my graph, pick the simplest math. Obviously not that one. Negative 3 is nice. I'm going to go with negative 3. When I do -3 now, 1, -5, -16, and 24. Bring down the 1, -3 times 1 is -3. -5 minus 3 is -8. -3 times -8, positive 24. That's 8. -3 times 8, -24, gives me a 0. Backfill 8 minus 8x and x squared. Now once I have this, I'm going to use my quadratic formula. -b, that's positive 8 plus or minus the square root of b squared, which is 64, minus 4 times a, which is 1, times c, which is positive 8. All over 2a is just 1 still, so it's all over 2. 4 times 1 times 8, that's 32. 64 minus 32 is 32. Put this into your calculator. 8 plus the square root of 32 divided by 2 gives you 6.83. Eight minus the square root of 32 over 2 is 1.17. There's 2 roots. There's the third. I'm done. Look back at our graph. -3, 1.17, 6.828, which I just rounded off to 6.83. Last problem from the homework. X cubed minus 14x squared plus 4. P would be plus or minus 1, plus or minus 2, plus or minus 4. Q is just 1. So this would be our whole set, plus or minus 1, plus or minus 2, plus or minus 4. Now we're going to look at our graph, pick out which one we know works. That's ugly. I'm going to go with 2 right off the bat. Plug in 2. That's 1, -14, 22, and 4. Bring down my 1. 2 times 1 is 2. -14 plus 2, -12. 2 times -12, that's -24. 22 minus 24 is -2. 2 times -2 is -4. That gives me 0. Backfill is -2. -12x, and x squared. Plug it into my formula. -b, it's a positive 12 plus or minus the square root of b squared, which would be 144 minus 4 times 1 times -2 all over 2. 144 plus 8 is 152, so it's 12 plus or minus the square root of 152 over 2. Plug it into your calculator, we'll get the rest. All right, that leads us to tonight's homework. Tonight's homework is where we're going to do one of the harder problems from our homework assignment, or from our notes. which is why I had an exponent greater than. When I do one like this, I have to go through the same procedure. This one's not a good one because I have an 18x all the way in the back. I could factor an x out, and I would start with x equals 0. So always check for that to make sure that that's not a possible way to do it, because every term has an x, so I can pull an x out in front, and then we're back to the same way we did this one. So this is where we would have one like this. First thing I have to do, find my p. In this case, it is 18. What are the factors of 18? Well, I have 1, 2, 3, no 4, no 5, 6, 9, and 18. Then I find my factors of q. In this case, it's just 1. So my possible roots are 1, plus or minus 2, plus or minus 3, plus or minus 6, plus or minus 9, plus or minus, and plus or minus 18. Now I'm going to plug this equation into Desmos. So we need to add an x to the fourth in, minus 13x to the third, plus 55x squared, minus 81x, plus 18. Now I'm looking for a whole number. That's better. When I look for my whole number here, I can see I found one at 3 and found one at 6. That one's 3.732. I'm going to go with 3 and just plug it into my equation. So that is 1, negative 13, 55, negative 81, and 18. And then I'm plugging a 3 in, I said. Bring down the 1. 3 times 1 is 3. Negative 13 plus 3 is negative 10. That's negative 30. This is 25. That's 75. That's negative 6. That's negative 18. 0. Negative 6. 25x. Negative 10x squared, and x to the third. Now, because I'm not done yet, now I'm down to x to the third, which is what we had been doing. I could find my factors of 6, but really that's only going to get rid of 9 and 18. I looked at the graph. Remember we had a 6 there as well. So I'm going to choose 6 as my next one. 1, negative 10, 25, and negative 6. Bring down the 1. 6 times 1 is 6. That's negative 4, negative 24, 1, and 6. I have 1, negative 4x and x squared. Now I can use the quadratic formula. Negative b, that's positive 4. 4 plus or minus the square root of b squared, which is 16, minus 4 times 1 times 1, all over 2. 16 minus 4 is 12. 4 plus or minus the square root of 12. That breaks down to 2 root 3 over 2. You divide all this by 2 just to make my numbers I'm putting in the calculator simple. It's going to be 2 plus or minus the square root of 3. If I do 2 plus the square root of 3, I get 3.732. 3.732. And then if I do 2 minus the square root of 3, it gives me 0.268. Alright, that's it for this video. You're going to have a homework assignment again on this again tonight. Tomorrow we move on to a new topic.